What's going on, everybody? Welcome to your daily digital download for Monday, May 18th. Well, I was away for the past couple days. I had to fly down to Miami to say goodbye to a friend, a close friend for a long time. So for that, I was AFK. Let me just add the link to the old TL. So thank you for dealing with my delay. Really appreciate it for anybody who tunes into these daily. Yeah, it's been a rough past couple weeks, not gonna lie, but we too will get through this. This has continued to be a pretty boring time for crypto, which I guess is good after the Q4 2025 that we had and Q1 2026 that we had, with just prices going down and to the right. That was no fun. But if we zoom out and take a look, I think the news of the day, the news of the week continues to be what the news was last week. Crypto stuff, Clarity Act stuff. So we'll just quickly get through today's news because like history sure is rhyming right now, if not repeating. So the Clarity Act passed the Senate Banking Committee with a 15-9 markup vote on May 14th. That was last Thursday, I think, maybe Friday. And the language in the bill structurally favors Circle. So the crypto industry has eked out a win against the banks as the wording stands today. Now, how yield is added into the Clarity Act is that stablecoins are payment instruments rather than deposit substitutes. So that goes against the whole bank's argument that if centralized entities and crypto entities can distribute yield on their stablecoins, the banks were afraid that there would be flight of deposits risk, that Americans wouldn't want to deposit their money into banks anymore. But the language doesn't support that sort of incentive to extract deposits from banks. So now the legislation, if it goes through, will protect the durability of Circle's float income model. This is nice because we continue to see stablecoin volumes and transactions go up and to the right, though not as rampantly and wantonly as we saw in 2025 after the pro-crypto administration was put into power here in the US. Stablecoin transaction volumes have been fairly steep. Stripped of bot activity, there's about $15 trillion worth of stablecoin transaction volume every month, which is up from around $11 trillion in 2025. So we're starting to see stablecoins be used more and more and more and more. And this only happens in a pro-regulatory and a pro-policy environment. The Genius Act, which was the United States stablecoin bill, passed last summer. And so this year, we've just seen a ton of stablecoin projects launch. The state of Wyoming, one of the 50 states here in the U.S., launched their own stablecoin, largely as a result of the Genius Act, which was the stablecoin bill from last summer. In addition to expected stablecoin yield or volumes and the benefits that come from that for Circle, the stablecoin issuer of USDC, all eyes are starting to also look at how agentic payments will benefit just crypto native and non-crypto native companies alike. While we might have seen agentic fervor, speculation, hype kind of slow down over the past month or two, particularly as February was the peak of OpenClaw self-hosted AI agentic conversation. The agentic payment space is still a huge vertical that entities are eyeing moving forward. X402 is a protocol that was sponsored by Coinbase and is now under the Linux Foundation, which has governance contributors from folks like Cloudflare, AWS, Stripe, Shopify, and Google. All eyes are starting to look at how Circle will be able to integrate its agentic solutions into its stack. The agent stack, which is Circle's SDK, allows wallets to build in a multi-chain manner and use gas-free transactions on these chains for as little as 0.00001 cents of USDC transactions. They will be gas-free fees. Additionally, they're eyeing an agent marketplace for service discovery and a unified CLI for wallet provisioning and transaction integration. Why is going after AI agentic solutions a big deal? Well, since X402 launched last May, so a year ago, there has been an cumulative 112 million transactions and $16 million in total payment volumes since launch. USDC handles more than 99% of all X402-based agentic payments globally. I guess we're skating to where the puck is going, huh? So there are still 3 steps that are left before the Clarity Act is signed into law. First, Senate Banking Committee's version needs to be reconciled with Senate Ag into a unified text. Then the merged bill needs to go to floor to vote on Congress or on Senate and needs to get 60 votes. And then after that, the Senate version and the House version need to be reconciled. And then that will go to the desk of the president to be signed into action. So where do we stand today with all of this news and information? Well, if you go to Polymarket, there is a 64% chance that the Clarity Act will be signed into law in 2026. That has gone up from 53% on May 12th. And you can just see here, it's kind of up and to the right, more or less, since Senate Banking Committee put their markup through. But I do want to keep hammering the table and highlight that if we don't get Clarity Act put through this summer, we're kind of facing a multi-year delay for the next time we can get a market structure bill put through. Basically, Congress has a recess from late July to early September. And then when they come back from their recess, these seats have to go get reelected. So the representatives will be on the ground campaigning, trying to get reelected. So Senate leadership is, quote, unlikely to schedule a contested 60-vote floor fight. Who is this individual that I'm about to quote again? Mark Cipollero? Is it Mark? No. Greg Cipollero is the head of research at financial services firm NYDIG. And he said that if the bill misses that window of getting voted on this summer, the highest probability remaining pathway becomes a post-election lame duck session available only if Republicans hold the Senate and Majority Leader, Thune, prioritizes it over other government funding deadlines, end quote. Currently, there's tight races for Senate to maintain its current composition. Republicans have a slight edge, but Democrats have another slight edge. So this puts key seats as toss-ups, and these key seats could land in Democrats' votes. And if we have a pro-Democrat Congress, majority Democrat Congress and Senate, then because the crypto narrative is largely tied to the Republican Party right now, we're already facing anti-support from Democrats, largely because of this bipartisan nature of how crypto is viewed on the Hill. So, all this to say, it's great that we finally got the bill through the Senate Banking Committee. The Senate Ag Committee was written in a way that favored a lot of pro-Republican stances, which leads me to believe that it won't just be a sign-off and stamp on the consolidation of the Senate Ag version and the Senate Banking version of the Clarity Act. So none of this is a slam dunk. None of this is an easy path forward. That being said, it's nice to see the percentage of the bill passing this year go from as low as 38% on Polymarket on April 22nd to as high as 79% on May 11th. So this is a good chart up and to the right. I am in the camp that any bill is better than a bad bill because we don't want to be at the whims anymore of a future administration that might choose to be anti-crypto. And all this is also spurring headlines like this, where Standard Chartered projects $4 trillion in tokenized assets by 2028, half of them being stablecoins and the other half being RWAs. With law put into place, this just makes it easier for traditional financial institutions to onboard real-world assets like equities and commodities and private corporate debt and you name it. And who will benefit from this? Well-established decentralized finance protocols positioned to capture the bulk of the resulting throughput. When we have more on-chain assets that are living on immutable, permissionless, borderless blockchain networks, that's just all sorts of new capital that are coming on chain. And that further cements our industry, our technology, as something that will remain behind. And so to see $2 trillion stablecoin supply, $2 trillion RWA market, each having that market cap by the end of 2028, being propagated by Standard Chartered, it's pretty nice. That being said, I will caveat all of this with Standard Chartered recently launched their own stablecoin. They have a consortia that they're building of entities that are going to be using their on-chain offerings. So the cynic in me just wants to point out the caveat that Standard Chartered might also be talking their books because they want to get more users for their products. That being said, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent increased his prediction that stablecoin total cap would be $3 trillion by 2030. He increased it $1 trillion from $2 trillion earlier last year. So it's not just financial entities that are talking their book, but it's also United States politicians and elected government officials, or maybe not elected because we didn't elect Scott Bessent. He was put into power by the administration. But this is where the puck is going, folks. Like, look at what is happening in front of our eyes. Major banks, major actors in the federal government are just predicting larger and larger market caps for actual use of our tokens on our blockchain networks. It's so hard for me to be negative about where we're going as an industry when in 2017, after the ICO boom, 2018, I was wondering if we were going to be able to survive as an industry after we watched all these projects fraudulently raise hundreds of millions of dollars and then just fade away into obscurity. The bear market of 2018 and 2019 was existential, as was the bear market of 2022, 2023, when FTX collapsed. I was wondering if we had shot ourselves in the foot so much as an industry and had gone so far that we could not repair our image or our ability to get back into the arena and try things. I love seeing headlines like this, even though sentiment on CT is garbage. If you go to crypto conferences, a lot of folks are saying that the magic is gone, that it's all bankers in suits. Like, this is just what happens as our industry evolves. And in other news, if we flip the coin on and look in another manner, we're also starting to see how Wall Street is making its own intra ecosystem plays to solidify its outlooks. And I'm only pointing this story out to highlight that we're now starting to see Wall Street allocate in a way that it might impact the broader market. Goldman Sachs, whatever you want to think about Goldman Sachs, you can think it. They exited their XRP and Solana ETFs, but maintained the most amount of exposure that they had to Bitcoin and also decreased their exposure to Ethereum. So I don't know what this says. I'm not going to speculate. But it is really interesting to see that Goldman Sachs is making these moves. Why did they leave XRP? Why did they leave Solana? One could argue that XRP has the strongest kind of like running narrative right now in TradFi, that your mom and pop's equity investors know more about XRP than any other blockchain or crypto out there. And you could also argue that Solana, of the top three blue chips, Solana, Bitcoin, and Ethereum, Solana likely has the highest upside, largely because it is the most risky of the three. Why is Goldman Sachs exiting? Who knows? That being said, they still have equity in crypto companies. They're still holding hundreds of millions of dollars in Ethereum and Bitcoin ETFs. And they're still investing in infrastructure, crypto infrastructure. So super interesting. On to some negative news before we finish up with some positive news. Verus, which is a privacy-oriented blockchain protocol that launched in 2018 and uses a hybrid proof-of-power consensus mechanism combined with proof-of-work and proof-of-stake, has a bridge that connects Ethereum to its blockchain ecosystem, and that bridge was hacked and attacked. Currently, the amount that has been drained so far is $11.58 million worth of TBTC, ETH, and USDC. The attacker has already swapped stolen assets for 5,402 ETH, which is about $11.4 million. Yikes. And one of the security entities that is reviewing the hack, says that right now, even though this is still kind of an ongoing story, so we don't know if the hack has been stopped or if the wound has been cauterized and the bleeding has been subdued. But currently, in the fog of war, the attack surface seems to be a cross-chain message validation and signature forgery, withdrawal logic bypass, or access control flow. So I'm only pointing out this story to highlight that we are still in the weeds. We are still in the throes of security season. Be careful out there. Only use products and tools that you completely trust. And even if you do completely trust them, don't have 100% exposure because you never know what the attack surfaces are. Moving on to a story that I've been covering for the past couple weeks, that is Bitcoin ATMs here in the US. Many states are trying to ban them outright and make them illegal, as are countries like Canada and New Zealand. But one of the longest and largest running ATM operators, Bitcoin Depot, has announced today that they are filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and will begin to wind down their processes. The team said that the regulatory environment for Bitcoin machine operators has shifted negatively towards as states have imposed increasingly stringent compliance obligations, that there are new transaction limits, and in some jurisdictions, they're just being banned, these Bitcoin ATMs, and that operators in general are facing increasing litigation and regulatory enforcement. As is such, Bitcoin Depot is going to be shuttering its doors. They've been kind of following or having problems this year. In March, just 2 months ago, Bitcoin Depot appointed a new CEO after the entity lost its money transmission license, or it was suspended in Connecticut. And then at that time, the firm also said that its revenue would drop 30% to 40% just from regulations alone, state regulations. And that the reality of the situation has gotten worse because they also suffered an IT breach that resulted in $3.7 million being stolen from crypto wallets. So now not only are they facing policy and regulatory threats, but they also just faced a security exploit. And in Q1 of this year, the company saw a net loss of $9.5 million, where a year earlier, they saw a net gain of $12.2 million. So they're clearly hurting. There's no way out from the hole that they've been dug into. And it's unfortunate to see Bitcoin ATMs being attacked here in the US. But that being said, they are a single attack vector for Bitcoin crime. A lot of elderly who are being scammed are literally going to these ATMs, putting their money into them, and then sending them off to scammers, overwhelmingly so. It is an obvious attack vector. And just in general, I would never advocate for anybody to use a Bitcoin ATM. The oracles they use for prices are outdated, so you might sometimes be paying a higher spot price for the Bitcoin that you want to buy than is actually being charged by the market. And the fees are just exorbitant, just really, really expensive. It also doesn't teach people about keys and maintaining your own wallets, even though you do get a piece of paper printed that is your private key. So, like I said, Bitcoin Depot was founded in 2026 and was one of the first to launch a kiosk system and owned the largest network of Bitcoin ATMs in North America, as they operated over 9,000 machines globally. Sad to see an end of an era. But look, I mean, there were so many better ways to onboard into crypto. So I'm not really going to cry over spilled milk. And then lastly, what did Michael Saylor do this weekend? Well, Strategy acquired an additional 24,869 Bitcoin for $2.1 billion between May 11th and May 17th. The guy does not stop buying. Look at all look at the amount of Bitcoin holdings that they have just been getting their hands on. My God, they are less than 200,000 Bitcoin purchases away from holding 1 million. I honestly think we're going to be getting to a place soon where we start to get concerned about entities like MicroStrategy holding such large supplies of Bitcoin, because we're going to start getting into arguments about centralization and decentralization of token supply and who holds them and what that means for the network and the market and things like that. But I still don't think that we're at a place where that sort of conversation or argument or discussion has quite hit the mainstream. So you heard it here first, folks. There will be arguments and there will be concerns about the centralization of corporate treasury holdings. All right, folks. Well, I'm easing back into things after taking the past couple 4 or 5 days off. So we'll be back tomorrow. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Smart Economist newsletter at thesmarteconomist.beehive.com. I will get back to doing these more frequently. I just have had a rough past couple weeks, honestly. But you guys don't care about that. You just want your content. And you deserve it. So, subscribe for the newsletter. Here, enter your email address and subscribe. And with all that said, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to the Daily Digital Download for Monday, May 18th. Hopefully we get the Clarity Act put through this week onto the next level so that we only have to worry about 2 more steps instead of 3. But until tomorrow, be safe out there. Take care of yourself. Take care of your friends and family. And don't stress too much about things that you can't control. All right, folks, with all that said, thank you so much for tuning in today. Look forward to catching you tomorrow.